Every year, I talked to fewer and fewer, to one point where I didn't even want to talk to my parents. When they asked me, what do you do again? I was like, don't worry about it. It's not important. I'm happy. I'm going well. I met a girl. And my mom would be happy, right? She'd go off and say, it's good job, Dave. You finally met a girl, kind of thing. But every year, from talking to my friends about what I did, to having that passion to communicate science, to tell people why it was interesting, why they should learn to it, to talk to a few less. By about year 4 of my PhD or so, I was talking to really, although I'm always talking to people, but about what the science I was interested in, to like 12 people in the world, right? 12 people that we were trying to convince that what we were doing was important. 12 people that were trying to say that we had figured out why this thing would come together and turn left versus right when we poked a needle into some agar that it was crawling on. Yeah, it turned left. And trying to prove about why it was doing that. So every year, I talked to less and less people. Every year I got engaged with less and less of the public, less and less of the discussion about science, less and less about what I was really interested in, and more just into trying to prove something, trying to figure something out, trying to understand the world. Because really I was in that positivistic kind of phase where I really believed that what science allowed you to do was understand the world. And what it allowed you to do was work on a belief that the world was understandable, that it was possible for me to learn something about the world and figure out how it worked in some ways. So I was in that kind of early scientific understanding of what I was trying to do in the sense of what was going on. And I finally decided that after sitting in 24-hour, lots of radiation, we're doing experiments with a lot of radiation at the time. This thing takes 24 hours to basically go through its life cycle. So we're sitting in a dark room about this size with a microscope on one side to watch, that my life wasn't as charmed as I wanted to be. And I decided to move from there into journalism, into science journalism, and to learn a little bit about it, to do it, and to become that. And it really was at that point that I kind of shifted. And I started to really recognize the difference about what was about to happen, what was about to happen to me on some level. And this is what I now bring into the classroom at Concordia with the Concordia Science Journalism Project. For those that are interested, it's www.csjp.ca. You can learn some of the stuff of what we're doing and things like that. And I'll talk a little bit about that program in a sec, but I just want to talk about, and you'll be able to see this, just so you see if this is interesting, the refocusing that happened there. Because this is what I kind of think is interesting in terms of talking about science journalism, talking about what education might give, what programs might be involved. When I was in science, basically what did I do? I talked, and I talked. I talked a lot. I did conference presentations, I talked about my work, I talked about how things were done. I didn't talk to very many people about it, but that's pretty much what I did. When I crossed the divide, as some people put it, to journalism, that stopped. I didn't talk so much anymore. Now I listened. I wanted to learn what people were doing. When I was in science, I took my time. I took my time to cover as many variables as I had, to think about how my experiments were being manipulated by my own mind, how it was done. I stopped it there. When I moved into journalism, I switched from that. And no longer did I take my time. I made snap judgments. Your science isn't interesting. I like your science. I'm going to write about that. Bang. Cover A, don't cover B. I started to make those kind of decisions almost instantaneously based on how I was trained by Margaret Monroe to be a science reporter. So that kind of ingrained, make a choice, quick, go down, what is good, what is not. As a scientist, I was very fond of caveats, super fond of them, in the sense of, well, my research may say this, but it may not say that, in that kind of sense. When I went into journalism, I became super fond, partially because of what my editors wanted on some level, of breakthroughs, of things that really push things forward. And I'm not using breakthrough in the sense of how it's often used as breakthrough X, breakthrough, things like that, but real advances, real things that push scientific fields forward, real things that you could actually call a breakthrough. As much as you may not want to use that term anymore, it's that term people don't want to do, became interested in what that was there. I basically, instead of writing for my field and those 12 people, started to write for what I could envision as anybody that was out there. And I moved basically from writing about simple things in science. So I wrote about what we know as a scientist. I know this about why dictyostelium, the amoeba, does certain things. And from there, moved to the complexity of what I'm trying to prove, to flip the other way.